So 65 years ago, our Rebbe sits down with a room full of Chassidim. I don't know how many were in the room, maybe 200, 300. Not that many. And the Rebbe looks and he says, we are going to conquer the world. We, our small little group over here, we are going to conquer the entire world. Every country, every continent, every city, everything, the entire globe. We're going to conquer it with Kedusha, with holiness. We're going to bring Mashiach. That is, we understand, for a person that has maybe 300 people, 400 people, 500 people as his followers, to have dreams that he's going to conquer the entire world, we would say is a very, very big dreamer. But the Rebbe meant it serious, and meant it for real, and 65 years later, the dream doesn't look like a dream anymore, it looks very, very real. But the Rebbe, interesting, said at that time, and this is what the main thing of this sif, of this mimer, is the Rebbe said, I need you, Chevre, to help me do this. I'm not going to do this myself. We're going to do this together. But in order to accomplish this, I need a bunch of mad men. I need a bunch of mad men. I need crazy people. I need Meshugoyim. What does that mean? You need crazy people? See, this Chabad. Chabad is intelligent, is smart, wise. The Rebbe said, underneath that wisdom, yes, of course, we're all Balei Moichin, people of understanding, people of the mind, but there has to be a drive beneath us, a fire within us that's a fire of madness, a fire of craziness. What we call, what the Rebbe refers to as shtus. Shtus the Kedusha, holy madness. And if the Rebbe says, if you're willing to be crazy along with me, we're going to accomplish this. Who's enlisting to come join me in this madness? And Baruch Hashem, as he says, Felt Nishkar Meshugoyim, we Baruch Hashem, with our madness, we did amazing things. So let's take a look at the Maayan and see. Generally, we think that madness and craziness is not a good thing. When you act mad, you get yelled at by your parents. You be a mensch. And here's something the Rebbe is saying, hey, we need some shtus. So how does that work? Shtus is not a good thing. Say, holy shtus. What does it mean, holy shtus? So let's take a look inside in the Maayan. We're not going to learn the whole thing. We're just going to go through and hopefully just point out a couple of points quickly. Just like there is a shtus that is considered lower than reason, lower than the seichel, lower than the mind, which the Rebbe explained in the earlier sifim, the earlier parts of the mimer, and we're going to see it later. We come full circle at the end of the sif, at the end of the parak, where the Frierdiker Rebbe tells us we encounter what's called the regular shtus, the unholy shtus. And the Rebbe basically told us in the earlier pieces, in the earlier parakim in the Maayan, that the world that we live in, even though we like to look at it as people being, built, civilization has been built, but most people, most of the time, are really not acting in a sophisticated, intelligent way. Most behaviors of most people is usually a little bit nutty. People are quite nutty in many things. Even people with neckties and nice suits and business executives, they're also pretty nutty. Because if they would stop for a moment and examine their daily activity of how they behave, they would see certain things really, really don't make any sense. But yet, people do so. So, the Rebbe says this is a world of madness anyways. And if we have to make this world into a Kedusha Diga world, we have to take the shtus and convert it into holy shtus. We can only fight madness with madness. You can't fight madness with reason. And I'll explain you why. See why you need madness. You ever saw a crazy person act out in their craziness? If a mashugana starts behaving in a maddened way, goes crazy, and they start screaming and shouting and throwing things, there's a lot of energy, a lot of power. I have an uncle who didn't have any children for many years. He adopted a daughter, adopted a little girl, a little baby. Adopted her newborn. Didn't know of anything. When she grew up, she was very, very, very extremely autistic. Extremely autistic. And there were times, she's a girl, maybe she was 17, 15, 13 years old, and at a certain point, in one day, my uncle was telling me, she went crazy. And it was dangerous. What she was going to do was just simply dangerous. They called the police. They didn't know what to do. They had to hold her down. There were like 6 cops, and they couldn't hold down this one girl. And the reason for that is because when madness is very, very powerful, very, very strong. People that work with intelligence, the reason why animals are so strong, animals are really strong. A bear is very, very strong. Other animals are really powerful. The reason for that is because the mind, the intellect, the mind, acts like a filter. And when your energy goes through your mind, you know what it does? What the seichel does? The seichel is an incredible tool Hashem gave us. That's what makes a human being human. It makes us special. It makes us able to build and construct. Animals live in a world of madness. And therefore, the jungle looks exactly the same like it looked 5,000 years ago. The jungle didn't change. They didn't build anything. They didn't construct anything. Human beings, because they have seichel, are able to build cities. They're able to construct. We have whatever we build to make the world the way it is. Animals don't have that. So, of course, the mind is very special, but what the mind does is it weakens the energy. And I'll give you a simple example for that. If you take a look when wind is blowing, it's a windy day. So if you walk outside on a windy day, sometimes your hat will fly off, your yarmulke can fall off. It's windy, the wind is blowing very strong. And as much as it blows over here, if you go to the beach, what happens when you go to the beach? Go to the water, the wind is much stronger by the beach. As strong as it will be here, it will be much stronger by the beach. And if you go out on a boat, and you go out over the water, it will be very, very powerful. Or in the desert. We're in the desert and went out during a windy night in the desert that's crazy. And what's the reason for that? Why in a city don't you feel the wind isn't as powerful as in an open area? Simply because in a city there are many buildings and there are many walls, and when the wind comes, the walls and the buildings and everything that is constructed blocks the wind. And when it blocks the wind, it weakens the power of the wind. The wind gets weaker and weaker because the wind has to squeeze itself through. Here and there, it's being blocked. But in the ocean, there's no barriers. There's nothing there. It's a wide open space. So the wind can blow and nothing is stopping it. And it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, super powerful. The same is with the energy, with the power that's in a person. You have a nefesh, you have a soul. And the soul is a root of a lot of power and a lot of energy. But what happens, the mind is a little filter. Now, I want you to imagine something. If you go to the ocean, for instance, and you put a wall, you block the wind, a massive wall, you build the Great Wall of China, right? Okay, you're building this wall, and then you leave a little hole, and the wind is blowing. On the other side of the wall, the wind is blowing really strong, but then it gets stopped by this wall. And then the wall is coming through a little hole. The wind is blowing through a little hole. How much energy is going to come out the other side? How strong is that wind going to be coming through the hole? I mean, it's going to be strong, but nothing compared to the wind that's on the other side. The mind, the nature of the mind is it's a filter. It takes the power and the energy of the person and it weakens it. But the energy itself, before it goes through the mind, is just raw energy. What are you going to do with it? I mean, what is it? Well, look what an animal does. It just runs around, and when it wants something, it goes chasing. You see a cheetah running after a deer, right? It runs with its entire power, an unbelievable ferociousness, rips the animal to pieces. But obviously, that's crazy behavior, right? Crazy behavior. But there's a lot of power to it. So the Rebbe says an interesting thing. Even though human beings are generally supposed to work with their minds, with their seichel, but there are certain times when it's appropriate, and it's right, and it's correct, that human beings should act in a certain... should allow themselves into the world of craziness, which means they should go beyond their mind. What do I mean by that? There are certain occasions, certain things in life that even you forget about what Hasidus, let's say, says right now for a moment. Just talk about, just regularly, we look at people, and there are certain times that it's justified for a person to be crazy. For instance, if you went into the grocery store, and it's a Sunday morning, and usually, sometimes Sunday or Monday in the market, there's no milk, in Los Angeles at least. And you really want milk because you like your cereal with milk. And there's no milk, you see, there's really no milk, no, there's no milk. When is there going to be milk? I can't have my cereal with milk. And then suddenly the door opens up and the guy brings in a carton of milk. Okay? And you say, wow, milk! Okay, now watch what happens. And suddenly you start literally somersaulting inside the... You're making kulias. You're making kulias forward and back with it. Or you see, not you. You watch a person do this. Okay, someone is coming to buy milk for his family, there's no milk. They say, "Abba, you should let him, this guy will go off his rockers, right?" We shouldn't, no? Doesn't make any sense, right? You understand? Because it doesn't, when you get milk, milk is not, as much as your cereal is important for you, it's not that important that it requires for you to react with such excitement that's insane, that's madness. Okay, but we understand, what would happen if someone would walk in right now, and Rabbi Greenbaum would turn to them and call them outside for a few minutes, very serious looking people, then they'd walk in over here and Rabbi Greenbaum would be smiling, really, really big smile. He says, there's a special announcement to make, and these two sophisticated people come and they talk and they say, you know, Cheder Menachem, you don't even know that you were part of a contest. What was the contest? We're from the Israeli, we want to help children have a love for the land of Israel, stuff like this, and we made a big raffle and we want to take 7th and 8th grade to Israel for a trip for 2 weeks. And we made a raffle, and Cheder Menachem was the one who won. This is what happened right now, while I'm talking right now, while we're sitting over here. They interrupt me and they tell me, Rabbi, this is very important. What would be the reaction? What would be the reaction of all of you? The coolies, crazy, we're going next week already. We just have finished getting the passport, we're all going. Today, does it make sense to be today? Yes. No one is going to say Cheder Menachem boys are all nutty and they're crazy, because it's normal in this case to be crazy. Because it's something so fantastic. And what do you think is going to happen when Mashiach comes? And then let's say we know that Rebbe is in 770. We'll get a phone call right now that Rebbe is in 770. And it was and you watch Rabbi Shochat, Rabbi Reichik, and Rabbi Schusterman from Beverly Hills, right? All these three rabbis start making tumble sauces. Okay, it would be kind of funny, right? But you wouldn't think it's crazy. Why wouldn't you think it's crazy? Mashiach is here. You're crazy or something? Who's not going to act like you? It's madness. It's crazy. So there are certain things that require madness. It's right to be crazy because it's something so phenomenal the mind can't handle. Why would you put your mind over there and try to understand it and make, no, it's Meshuggah, it's crazy. The Rebbe is saying over here in the Maimer that bringing Mashiach is such an important thing. Bringing Hashem down into the world is such an important thing. The only way to do that is to approach it with a madness, with something that is higher than our seichel, higher than our mind. We can't understand it. Take a look over here. The Rebbe says there is shunikra b'shem shtus de klipa. That's the regular shtus. There is possibility to go higher than the mind. Shtus de kedusha. That's called holy shtus. The Inyan Amar Azal, and the Frierdiker Rebbe brings an example. He says there is an example of people acting when something was so givaldi, they couldn't contain themselves, and they acted in a way that made no sense. The Gemara says, they said about Rabbi Yehuda bar Iloi, that we came to a wedding, he danced by a chasana in a very, very unbefitting way. He was twirling the twig of Adasim. He made him look a little funny. Okay, he's from the Tanoim. He's standing with this twig and he's twirling it. And he was dancing in front of the Kala. Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, the later generation of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, he was juggling with 3 myrtle branches. Amar Reb Zayda brings from Rashi, and Reb Zayda says, you're embarrassing us. The other Chachamim felt uncomfortable. Why are you acting this way? People are not going to respect us. I mean, you're making somersaults, you're making tumble sauces, you're the rabbi, you're an important person, you're acting in such a way. Right? So what happened? So in the end, however, when he passed away, the Gemara says that Reb Zayda, there was a big fire. Mamish, the people can see with their eyes, in front of the, where Shmuel Rav Yitzchak's body was, and he was in a, like a Levaya, there was a big fire that blocked everybody from coming to his coffin, to the Aron, because they saw why was there fire there, and they realized that he was such a tzaddik and he had such kedusha, such holiness, that there was a fire of Hashem down here in this world between him and everybody else, and everybody was stunned at the holiness. And Reb Zayda saw that, and Reb Zayda said, why did he deserve that? Why that? And that was because of his avodah. Because he served Hashem, not with his reason, not with his seichel, he was able to go beyond his seichel and act in this shtustig way, in a way that's like higher than his understanding. Frierdiker Rebbe goes on to explain why that is done by a chassan adafka, why he did it. It wasn't like Reb Shmuel bar Reb Yitzchak was chas v'shalom, the town of Meshuggah. Reb Shmuel bar Reb Yitzchak was Reb Shmuel bar Reb Yitzchak. He was one of the sages of the Maayan. All his life, he was a very organized, normal, respectable person. But when it came to a wedding, it looked like he lost his mind. So the Rebbe is explaining why dafka. It was the same idea that I told you earlier. If milk comes and you have a bottle of milk, even though you want milk, and you dance like a Meshuggah for it, then you're a Meshuggah. And you belong in an asylum. But if Mashiach came and you're making tumble sauces or whatever, something gewaldig, unbelievable happens that makes you so happy. So gewaldig happy, and because of that you're dancing with simcha, that's a normal thing. So the Rebbe says every chasana, when there's a Yiddish chasana taking place and a man and a woman in a hut, which he says over here, when a man and a woman get together and get married, you have Hashem's name that comes to dwell amongst them. A very, very powerful light, not even a light, Hashem himself comes down to dwell amongst them. In order to bring down that light by a chasana, we can't bring down that light unless we too go beyond our mind, about our seichel. And that's the reason why we're supposed to dance by a chasana. And the dancing by the chasana has to be like dancing. See, sometimes I go to chasanas in Borough Park and chasanas in Lakewood. I have family. And there's dancing. And when people dance, they all pick up their foot exactly like this. You see? And they all have exactly how high they bring their foot and how they move it. And I realized that when you come to a Lubavitcher Chasanim, the people, they love it. Why do they love it? Because when I spoke about this last year a little bit. Come to a Lubavitcher Chasanim, no one is thinking about how their feet are this or that. You're dancing. You get lost in the craziness of a dance. That's what dancing is. Dancing means forget about yourself a little bit. Forget about, don't be conscious of yourself. Don't think about this one is looking, that one is looking. You're just in a world of craziness. A chasana demands such craziness because we want to bring down the Eibishter himself. And the Eibishter, you can't take him, you can't connect to Hashem himself, with your seichel, with reason. To Hashem himself, you can only correct beyond reason. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe goes on to explain how Hashem himself is higher than the seichel, higher than the mind. And the way to relate to him is not with seichel. Because your mind is not an instrument, your mind is not a tool to connect to Hashem. It's a deep part of the mind, but I think I do want to share it with you. You don't have to get afraid when you see certain things in Chassidus that sound a little too deep. If you think about it a little bit, it's not that hard. Or you learn, you could understand. Yes, I want to share with you just a little thought. You know, everything has the proper instruments. In order to take it, you want to take something, everything has a proper instrument. Food on the table, there are different instruments, tools that we use to eat the food, or that your mother would like you to use when you eat your food. Okay, there's a fork, there's a knife, there is a spoon, and different things that are used. Okay, now if you're eating soup, and when you're eating soup, you're going to decide to use chopsticks to eat soup. Now the truth is, I think the Japanese do eat soup with chopsticks. They figured out how to do that. But, you know, that would be ridiculous. You can't eat soup with chopsticks. Chopsticks are for sushi. You try to eat soup with chopsticks, it doesn't grab the soup. It's not going to work. You have to have an instrument that's able to take it. Now, we understand, but you might attempt, right? You might attempt. It's possible. To pick up what? Soup, which really needs a spoon, with chopsticks. How about if you're going to try to take chopsticks, and here's the thing. You're boarding class, and your mind is not here, and you want to listen to the radio. I'm not going to, why? Boy, you would never want to do this, but let's say, and it's a game that's playing. You want to hear the game. But you can't. You get in trouble. You can have a Walkman. That's escape. So what are you going to do? So you figure out how can you pick up the radio waves. There are radio waves going through the room. So it's simple. If you're going to put on an antenna, Okay, one day you put on chopsticks on your head, and you say, chopsticks pick up sushi. So if they're meant to pick up, I'm going to use the chopsticks to pick up the radio waves. Said, what do you mean? Radio waves, you can't, yes, there are certain devices, there's an antenna that picks up radio waves, but chopsticks can pick up, it's a laughable thing. If you go to the doctor, you have a cough or a bronchitis, and the doctor has a device in which they feel your heart, and they pick up the sound of your chest. Imagine if your doctor takes out a pair of chopsticks, and he puts it down, he says, what are you doing? He says, this is supposed to pick up. And I used this yesterday, I used this to pick up sushi, and now, say, you're insane. So the Rebbe is saying over here, if you try to grab Hashem with your mind is not an instrument. It doesn't work. It's not even something, it's a laughable thing. You can't get Hashem through a mind because a mind is limited. A mind has limitations. The only way, if you want to get to the Eibishter himself, the only way is when you give yourself over to Hashem with a mesiras nefesh, with a total giving oneself over, without any reasoning and understanding, mamish like a simple person saying, Eibishter, I'm yours. And I don't have to understand, just with simplicity. That's when you're connecting to Hashem himself. And that's why he goes on to explain that the Nevi'im who connected to Hashem, while they had Nevuah, they didn't look like sane, rational people. They used to call the Navi a Meshugana. Because while they had Nevuah, they looked like crazy people. They did weird things, strange things, because they couldn't, right? So the Rebbe is saying, in our relationship, in our Yiddish, since our job is to bring Hashem down into this world, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, and as the Rebbe explains it, our avodah of our generation has to be with a holy madness. So now we don't have that much time, so I want to conclude a little bit. What does this mean, a holy madness? Is the Rebbe really saying, guys, all be just nuts and be crazy? Obviously, that's not what the Rebbe wanted. He didn't want to have just a banda mishigoyim. The Rebbe wanted that we should serve the Eibishter, and the serving Hashem requires your mind, and requires you to be a very thinking person. Chabad Hasidus demands a lot of thought, and hisboinenus, and contemplation, and learning. You're always learning in which you use your mind. So what does it mean that we're asking, the Rebbe is saying that to bring Mashiach, we're going to have to get involved in a manner that is shtus. So let's first understand something. Let's take a look at the world. Remember I mentioned earlier that the world is full. Most people anyways conduct themselves with certain nuttiness, with certain madness. So where do you see that? So the Frierdiker Rebbe says that you see that how people are so stubborn when it comes to the time of eating, in which they you can't budge the time of eating. And that's doesn't make any sense. Sometimes there's important things, so you'll eat a little later. But no, this is my lunchtime, you can't bother me. I think let's try to find a mashal that maybe is a little more applicable, in which you see people generally in the world behave in a way of madness, not in an intellectual way. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in Disneyland. What am I doing in Disneyland? Maybe because I needed to teach the mimer and have a mashal for it. For whatever reason, I was in Disneyland. And because of I have a son that has a certain disability, so we were given the special pass to go ahead of every line. To be able to cut every line. Whoops, right in the front. Unbelievable. I'm watching and I'm watching people, standing on lines. Most of the lines were at least an hour wait. There wasn't any good ride. Some of them were an hour and 20 minutes. How long does the ride take? The ride averages between a minute and 3 minutes. Okay, I'll go longer lines, 3 minutes. People standing on line. Now, I didn't pay for my tickets. Okay, that's another thing. Besides cutting the line, I didn't pay for the tickets. The people came, and some of them brought their whole family, paid about $1,000 to go to the park. They paid $1,000 to stand on a ridiculous line. To go on a ride for about a minute to 3 minutes. Now, what's happening on the ride? There is some dancing puppets that are things that are doing. It's Peter Pan or whatever that's flying to the air. It's pretty cool. I can't say it's not. It's not. But to say, now, when they're coming with their families are coming with children, and some of them are 3 years old, 4 years old, and the parents are so excited that children are marveling. That I understand. But I've seen couples, 50 years old, 60 years old, and they're standing online for an hour and a half. to go on this little thing that and watching it dance again. You're gonna stand on a line for an hour and 20 minutes. A little self-respect as a normal person. You still paid $1,000. You're gonna pay $1,000 if it's only count on husband and wife. Then they pay $250. You're gonna stand on it, and then they have to fly because most of them are not from. They flew in to stand on a line to go watch these ridiculous things. But why do they do it? Because everybody does it. That's what you do. Disneyland. This is like the greatest pleasure and delight in the world. That is absolute insanity. That's ridiculous. It doesn't, if you stop the person and say, really, 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 are you going to spend, you have nothing better to spend your money on? Spend a day on vacation. There's so many more pleasurable things to do. And here people stand on these ridiculous lines just to go on a silly, ridiculous ride that they forget 5 minutes later. It doesn't make any sense, right? Today, there are going to be 113 million people who are going to spend 3 hours watching a game, 2 teams, in which they're not going to get anything. If anyone wins, they're not going to personally gain anything. Okay, it's not like they have connections to the player who's going to sponsor the Chabad house or something. It's not. People aren't going to get anything. It's two groups of boulevards, ungefressene goyim, right? Who are going to chase each other and throw each other down. And I'm not saying there's a lot of chachma and there's a lot of skill in the Super Bowl, in the game of football. It is. But you're going to have, let's imagine this, 113 million people who are going to sit glued. And you know what they're going to do, most people? They're going to shut down their cell phones. Or even if they do they're going to look, they get an important call, they're going to ignore the call. Because they're so obsessed with what's going to happen over here. They're completely caught up. Now I want to ask you a question. If 113 million people in the United States of America would get together one Sunday, imagine this, and would decide that they're going to take, now let's ask them who's sitting over here. There's, for sure, thousands of doctors, lawyers, college professors, government officials, people in the Senate, people in the Congress. The President of America, the United States of America, is probably also going to watch the Super Bowl today. When the world is in a place where who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Nuclear bombs are being planned. Who knows? The world is a dangerous place. There's so much that needs to be done, but everything is going to come to a stop because people have to watch the Super Bowl. That is really crazy. Imagine if these 113 million people would put their minds, energy one day together to do one thing, to make the world better. Let's see who we can feed today. This is the day, this is mitzvah day, so to speak. This is good deed day. We're going to put our energies together to deliver food, to visit the sick, to make people happy. Whatever people can do. Imagine what kind of betterment the planet will have on just one, if those 3 hours would be spent differently. But you can't even suggest this. No one can suggest this. If the president would have suggested this at the State of the Union address, where he suggested a lot of other shtuts, but if he would have suggested this, he would have been thrown off. They would have thrown him. How do you dare suggest in America? Not people shouldn't watch Super Bowl. Impossible. That's shtus. It's a shtus. It means that people are madly. Now the people are really connected. They're deeply connected in a maddening way. Even though it doesn't make any sense, they have to watch the Super Bowl. So the Rebbe is saying like this. When it comes to Mashiach, and it comes to our mission as a Lubavitcher Chassid to change the world, there's nothing wrong if we act a little crazy. Because you're dealing with a crazy world anyways. What's your craziness? I just want to give you an example of what means craziness. I'll tell you quickly 2 stories. One story, we know the story of Rabbi Reuven Wolf, his yahrzeit was last week. What does it mean? If I was to ask you, Rabbi Reuven Wolf, was he a crazy man? He was a tzaddik. He was a real chassid. He was not a crazy man. But yet, I'll show you it was a madness. What's the madness? Once a year, chassidim would go to where? To the White House to meet the president. Going to meet the president was shlachas of Lubavitcher chassidim, this one and that one, important people. Rabbi Reuven was part of that group. I don't know, all the year, 1 year to go to the president. Imagine most people going to the president, they're thinking about it, you think of how to look. Rabbi Reuven, when he comes to the White House, has one thing, very important thing that he has to bring along. That's a pair of tefillin. Because he's going to find a yid to put on tefillin in the White House. Okay, now please, relax. Relax. You don't get to go to the White House every day. You're going now once to the White House. But he's taking the longest tefillin. He's going, and I don't know the exact story. Maybe I filled in later. Whatever it was, he did find the Yid, and Rabbi Reichik ended up in the closet, in one of the rooms, putting on with this Yid tefillin in the White House. What does that mean? Now he could set off the alarms. They could have came in and took him out and put him to questioning in the CIA for a while. What's he doing over here? But you understand something? There was no cheshbonis in his mind. By him, when he is going somewhere, there is such a burning, powerful, the Rebbe said, Mivtzoyim, a Yid has to put on tefillin. The whole world was created for Yidden and for Torah and mitzvahs, including the White House. And if I am here right now, and there might be a Yid that I won't meet anywhere else, but his only encounter with the possibility to put on tefillin is over here, this is what we are going to do. And there is no cheshbonis. That shows that his drive in his Yiddishkeit was not seichelding. It's a beyond reason. It's beyond intellect. And through that, he accomplished amazing things. Rabbi Reichik, however, we know, is how many Rabbi Reichiks are there? But here's a simple story from a simple chassid. The story, why am I telling Dafka this story from thousands of other stories, or maybe more than thousands of other stories? I don't know. I woke up in the morning thinking, I'm speaking over here today, I need a story, and this is the story that popped into my head. I'm going to share it with you, but it does have this message. I read this many years ago in the Kfar Chabad magazine, and the story, and I don't remember exactly all the details. I don't remember the name of the person, but I know he's a big guy, lives in Crown Heights. He used to be in charge of giving out, maybe he still is, feeding in 770 the Chevra by Tishrei. He's in charge of the food. Anyways, I don't know his name. I don't remember. If you would tell me, I won't. What is it? Markowitz. Oh, could be. I think that was it. Anyways, he was by a Fabrengen in the summer. The Rebbe speaking on Shabbos, and the next day, Sunday, he had to go up to the Catskills for maybe he was visiting day in camp, and he went up to Gan Yisroel. On the way up, he's thinking about the Fabrengen that happened on Shabbos. On Shabbos, the Rebbe was talking about that two things the Rebbe was Fabrengen. He told him a lot about the Fabrengen. And that is that, first of all, that Mashem, the word from the Baal Shem Tov, that Mashem Mitzadei Gaver Kainam, that wherever a person walks, wherever a person goes, it's not by accident. Wherever you end up, there's a purpose. Hashem is putting you in that place for a reason. So that was one thing. The other thing the Rebbe was talking about on that Shabbos is that sometimes a neshama comes down for 70, 80 years, also from the Baal Shem Tov, just to do a favor for another Yid, begashmiyas, physical favor, or beruchniyas, to help someone out spiritually. Right? It's to help a Yid do a mitzvah. It could be the only reason your neshama came down is to help a Yid one time. These were the two things. He goes up to Rebbe, when he visited someone. He's driving back, and he comes back to Crown Heights. It's Sunday afternoon. As he's coming closer to Crown Heights, and he's supposed to make a certain turn, he was a little, whatever happened, he missed his turn. So he's driving, and then the thought occurred to him, hey, I missed my turn, and he's ready to make a U-turn or go back, but then the thought came to him, well, the Rebbe said that wherever you go, that whenever a Yid goes, it's all Bashkacha Pratis. Maybe there's something maybe the Rebbe's talking to me, and maybe there's something I need to do right now over here, that I ended up over here. This is where as he's driving, he notices a car that's stuck on the side of the road. And the guy has the hood up or whatever, and the person looked a little distraught. He had passed them already. But then he thought to himself, the Rebbe said that and then you remember the other thing, you're supposed to do a favor for a Yid. He doesn't know if the guy's Jewish, but then the Machshava thinks that maybe he is a Yid. So he goes, he swings around, I don't know if he made a U-turn or went around the block, came around, stops by the side of this person and asks him, do you need any help? And the guy looked very relieved, and he tells him in an old Hungarian-sounding Yiddish, not Yiddish, Hungarian English, that he's stuck over here, his car broke down, and he needs whatever, he doesn't know what to do. So he offers him, he says, he starts looking, why? He's not a mechanic. So he says, you know what, let me call AAA or something for your car. And he sees the guy is very agitated. So the man, he says, so like, well, the guy tells him, you know, I have a flight to catch tonight. And a little later, and I'm supposed to go pick up my wife, and we have everything packed, and we have to go to the airport. But now this happened that my car broke down. So he says, don't worry, he's calming him down, we'll take, say, what are we going to do with the car now? He says, you know what, we'll have it towed to a place, to a station. And then he says, you know what, I'll give you a ride home. Like, he can't believe it. He said, well, you stopped over here to help me, you don't know me. Not only that, you're giving me a ride home. All right. He takes him home. They got the car towed somewhere, wherever it needed to be towed. He took him home. When he gets to the house, he tells him, he says, I know you're probably all, to make you plan to going to the airport. Now everything messed up. He says, you know what, I'm going to wait for you. When is your flight? He says, okay, 3 hours. He says, do you want to go now? I can take you now. So he said, that would be wonderful. He says, okay, I'll give you a ride to the airport. So the guy brings his wife, and they come, they pack the luggage in, maybe they're going to England, remember, and they get into the car, and he's taking them to the airport. And he's thinking, listen here, the Rebbe said, and the Neshama comes down to do a favor for a Yid. This guy seems to have anxiety now, he needs to get to the airport. He feels this is his mitzvah. This is why he made the wrong turn. He's taking him to the airport, and in the conversation, the man is telling him, like, I really, really am very grateful to you that you did this. Why? I mean, you didn't have to do this. Why did you? So he starts telling him there's something called the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I'm a chassid. And I was yesterday, the Rebbe was talking, and the Rebbe spoke about how a person comes down to the world to do another favor for a Yid, and that everything is bashgacha pratis. I made a wrong turn, and because I made a wrong turn, I think maybe there's a reason for it. I meet you, I see a Jew in distress, I want to help you, and therefore I'm doing this. He sees the man is visibly moved. He even sees that he's giving, like, there's tears coming down his face. And then he realizes that the Rebbe said to do a taiva for a Yid begashmias and beruchnias. So he said, this is an opportunity. He turned to the person and he said, do you have a pair of tefillin? Do you put on tefillin? He said, no. He says, would you like a pair of tefillin? Anyways, no, I remember right now the story. He said he does have a pair of tefillin, but he never wears it. So he said, would you want to put it on? And he sees there's like quiet. And there's, for a while, it's quiet. And then he says, but I can come. Not now, obviously, but when you come back, you'll give me your phone number. I'll come to your house, and I'll help you put on the tefillin. And then, so he says, you know what? He says, I feel I owe it to you. I'll put on tefillin. They arrive to the airport. The guy gets out of the car. And he starts taking out the suitcases from the back. The person that's driving, he couldn't get out of the car because of traffic. He hears his wife, the Yid's wife, is crying in the back. So he turns to her and he says, ma'am, are you okay? So she says, you don't understand what happened now. You have no idea what's going on. He says, she said to say very quickly, she said, me and my husband, we both grew up before the war, we're both religious Jews, and we went through the Holocaust. I don't remember if they met after the war or they were married before. I don't know. I think they met after the war. We got married. And my husband, I wanted to keep a Yiddish home, but my husband, he came from a Hasidic house in Hungary, but he saw his brothers, his sisters, his parents were all killed. He was so angry and so upset, and he promised that he's not ever going to do anything involving Yiddishkeit ever. And after they that when I wanted to do certain things, I wanted to light Shabbos candles or do certain things, he would stop me. And he would yell at me, and he would something to get totally mad. And I would have to do it. Sometimes I lit Shabbos candles, I did it quietly, you wouldn't see, but he would literally go, and this thing was bothering me so much. A few weeks ago, I read something about a big rabbi, about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I decided to write him a letter. And I wrote him a letter expressing my anguish and my frustration that I'm trying to do a mitzvah, and I want to do it, and my husband, and that the Rebbe should do something to maybe give a bracha that my husband's heart should melt. It says, and here you come, and I don't get an answer. This was a few weeks ago, I didn't get an answer. And here you come telling me that you're a chassid of the Rebbe, you heard the Rebbe yesterday, and you come, and he said, you don't believe it. For my husband to tell you that he's going to put on tefillin, this is unbelievable. This is unreal. This is a miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf. This is what she tells him. He says goodbye to them. But let's just analyze one little thing. He makes a wrong turn. What's the same thing? What's the normal thing for a person to do when you make a wrong turn? Go back and turn around. Now, obviously, you start saying, hey, maybe there's a kabbah. But he's acting like a Meshuggah. The Rebbe said something. He believes that if the Rebbe said something, there must be a reason. There's something in him saying, no. He helps the guy. He could have called just the mechanic. He could have just called to help him out. The guy just needed a little help. No, he takes him home. Because the favor, he has to give him all the way. He took him home already. The guy can call a taxi. But because of his craziness, because he's a Meshuggah Lubavitcher, that's why he's literally a madman, and he hears from the Rebbe that you have to do a favor for a Yid, he decides to take him to the airport. That's all the craziness. And because of this, take a look what happens. Two Yiddish neshamas make their connection, or at least one of them makes his connection back to the Eibishter. That's our madness, our drive to in Yiddishkeit with a power that's higher than all understanding. We know something is good, we know something is right, learning, davening, mitzvahs, we do it with an energy, with a power, even if it means being crazy. And like remember our Rebbe said, I am crazy about Mashiach. Let's all be crazy about Mashiach and bring Mashiach today. Everyone have a really good week, and Bezos Hashem dance with Mashiach today in a crazy way.
Well, thank you very much.